What's going on, you guys? Dark Saint here yet again, bringing you guys another video, this time talking to you guys about The Division, and specifically update 1.4, which is literally right around the corner. So let's go ahead and get started on what we're going to be doing today, and that is gear changes. We've already gone over weapon changes and stuff like that. Today we're going to be going over gear changes, specifically gear changes. I am going to touch base on some of the skills that are being changed, just so you guys know what kind of gear is going to work in the future, what kind of gear might not work in the future, because the skills are going to be modified just as much as everything else in this update. Just about everything's being overhauled. So we're going to touch base on some of the skills that are getting some changes done to them, and then you have to understand that there is a new calculation system, so some of the math might not add up in your head. You're thinking of the Division that you know now with this crazy upgrade, and you're thinking, oh my god, you know, skill power is going to be OP and this, that, and the other. We don't know 100% exactly how it's going to be because there is a new calculation system and it really doesn't touch base on all that. But I will leave the link in to the patch notes in the description box below, so be sure to jump on that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll answer them to the best of my ability and we'll go from there. But in this video, we're mainly going to be talking about the gear changes themselves. I will go over some patch notes that are talking about gears that are being fixed. For example, the striker gear set's going to go through a fix, and I'm very excited about that myself. But we're going to go over all the gear, all the stats, everything is changing with them, and then we're going to also touch base on the skills that are being changed with those gear sets. So let's go ahead and jump into it and see what we have. Now, before I jump into all the gear stats and all the major changes that are coming to that, I do want to touch up on a little bit of the patch notes that may or may not affect the gear directly, but here are some things that are just nice to have. For example, players can now mark their weapons and gear as favorites in order to lock them in their inventory. This will prevent them from being sold, shared, or dismantled. Now, this is a nice benefit to have for those times that you might, accidentally make a mistake. I know I've sold items before that I didn't mean to. I haven't really dismantled or shared anything I didn't mean to, but I have sold something that I wish I hadn't. So being able to favorite it definitely is a benefit, and I believe that most MMOs nowadays has that feature or needs that feature, just because the amount of loot that you go through so often, it's hard to keep track of sometimes. I know they already added the auto mark system that was really, really nice, and they've had that since vanilla, but at the same time, I've had issues with that on a couple of occasions where it glitched out and wouldn't let me mark them for junk, and then I started speed selling a bunch of stuff and I ended up selling something I really didn't want to. So I kind of felt bad about it, so having this feature will help out. But they also even went one step further and also added the buyback option if, for example, you do run into an issue like that and you happen to sell an item that you really didn't mean. Maybe you just got it and you haven't had time to lock it in place yet, and for whatever reason you sold it. Having that buyback option is going to be very beneficial moving into the future, and that's a nice little addition for them to add for us as gamers. Now, there are a couple other things I want to talk about as far as gameplay changes, and these will affect the gear in what I'm going to talk about, because you'll notice some gear changes that are later on that'll be related to this, and I'll come back and I'll touch base on this once we get there. But these are some of the things that don't directly but indirectly affect gear. So for example, time to kill enemy NPCs has been lowered, and player ammo capacity has been increased by 50% after reaching level 30. Okay, later on there's going to be some gear changes that don't give you as much ammo as they did in 1.3. They're being nerfed and they're going to give you less ammo for using this, but that also has to take into consideration that you're getting more ammo from the ammo increase that you get at level 30. Plus, the enemies dying quicker means that you have to place less shots, so that you're saving ammo there as well. So you're actually getting a rather large increase to ammo rather than just what you guys may see as a nerf in some of the gear pieces that we're going to go over here in a minute. Other things that might affect your gear loadout will be something like incendiary and explosive rounds will no longer apply status effects such as stagger and on fire. Now, they do still have the element of fire in the game, but I think what this means is that enemy NPCs aren't gonna like wave around and freak out whenever they're on fire and not shoot at you. I think that they will be on fire and you can still do increased damage to them, and they'll still take DOT, which is damage over time for those of you guys that don't know. but they won't stagger. They won't just start waving their hands around like, oh my god, I'm on fire, and you know, you being able to take advantage of that and blast them in the face. I think that that's what they're saying is going to be gone, but I still think that you will still catch on fire and still take damage. I think that that's how it's also going to work in PvP. You'll be able to catch other players on fire and do more damage to them and still be able to do DOT, but I don't think that's going to stop them from using their skills or being able to shoot back or even able to run anymore. I think that they'll still be able to fight. They're not going to be patting themselves on the shoulders trying to take the flames out. Also, they updated the way the NPC reacts to threat, that allowing more predictable management of aggro. So this will help for those guys that might want to become a tank build and build the aggro for your team. This might actually implement that to be a actual reliable build. For some of you guys that enjoy MMOs and enjoy being the tank, this might be an update that helps you push more towards being a tank and actually playing that tank role. I don't know if that's really going to be effective or even change the game the way that we play it right now, but it just might add that option into the game. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the gear set fixes. They are finally fixing some of these gear set bugs, specifically the Striker gear set, which is why I have it highlighted in green, not in red like the other two. The Striker gear set. I love this gear set. I love how it looks. I love how it works. But they are finally fixing it. Now, some of you guys might not even realize that there's anything wrong with the Striker gear set. Maybe you just got into the division and you haven't been able to use it before and you guys are loving it as it is. But what it used to be able to do was so much more, especially in PvE, because you could build it up using one weapon and then swap to another weapon, say a bolt action sniper, and still have the bonus of the Striker gear set, which was really useful in taking out some of those snipers or enemies that were at a long distance that you just really wanted them dead as soon as possible. The Striker gear set gave that option to you, and this was amazing for lead assault characters, which is what I normally play as, is a lead assault player. Now, the best way for me to build the Striker set, and this is what I recommend to other players, is to use a fast-firing shotgun, specifically the Super 90. I think the Super 90 is one of the best shotguns for this talent, because this shotgun shells shoot out a barrage of pellets. For every pellet that hits, you increase your damage with the Striker set by 1%. So every single pellet, shooting out 8 to 10 pellets, can give you 8 to 10% of the Striker set. And if you have it comboed with the talent 1 is none, you're basically getting all your shot backs. You can just unload on an enemy's face, build up the Striker gear set very quickly, and then swap to another weapon like an SMG or an assault rifle or whatever, and just mow down a ton of enemies very quickly. It was an amazing strategy. I used to love doing it, and then they hit it with this, and the bug has caused it basically to be a nerf, and has made it to where it's not as viable as what it was, and it made it questionable to use it over other gear sets. So I'm very happy that they're finally fixing the Striker gear set. I love this gear set and can't wait to see it come back at least a little bit. I know it's already taken a couple of nerf hits, but that's okay. I still love it, and I still think it's going to be great, especially once they fix it. Another one that they're fixing is the Alpha Bridge. Fixed a bug where the Alpha Bridge would not take a weapon's talent into account if both weapons have it and the requirements are not met on either one of them. They're also fixing a bug with the 4-piece final measure where it would not defuse the APC mortar shells in the Falcon Lost Incursion. So those are the gear set fixes that are being implemented. Now there are a couple of other things I want to talk about on this, specifically under the UI, and that is, and this is going to change a few of you guys' playstyle, they're fixing the bug where bonus medkits and ammo gathered with specific backpacks or gear items equipped would remain after swapping to other items. This is specifically for you guys using the paramedic backpack or, you know, any of the other gear set bonuses that gave you extra ammo or extra med kits. You guys know what I'm talking about, like the Lone Star. If you equipped another piece of item, you would still have the ammo, and then if you ever came to an ammo resupply stash, you just re-equip the gear, grab out the ammo that you wanted, and then put on your battle gear for your combat or whatever else you were going to do, and you would have that ammo. So that is gone. They're taking that out of the game completely. They're finally fixing that. However, you also got to remember that you're also going to be able to kill enemies faster, plus you're getting a 50% bonus ammo straight out the get-go. So they're being generous by giving us that, but at the same time they are going to fix the exploit that people have taken advantage of. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, and this really isn't a gear change at all, but I'm really happy they're finally fixing it, is the audio drop on PS4. They're finally fixing it, thank God. I hated this so much whenever I would do my live streams, like the rogue sessions, and the audio would cut out, and I'd have to finish it out with like 30 minutes or even an hour worth of gameplay with no audio. So bad, so horrible. And then occasionally it would break in and static, and then it would cut out again. Very annoying, very infuriating for me anyway, and good to see that they're finally fixing that. Either way, let's move on. Next thing we're going to take a look at is the gear stat modifications. These aren't necessarily fixes because they're a complete overhaul of what the gear stats are. First off, you have removed skill bonuses from all gear items. Instead of backpacks, holsters, and knee pads will now have an additional slot dedicated to performance mods. Backpack having 2, holster having 1, knee pads having 1. Note that this change will not be retroactive, meaning it's not going to affect the gear that you have now. This is going on to future gear pieces. Next, gear items of gear score 182 or higher will now have provided fixed base stats in each of the main attributes. This comes in addition to existing random main stat bonus. So 182 will have 48 firearm stamina electronics, 204 gear items will have 101 firearm stamina and electronics, and 229 gear will have 148 firearm stamina and electronics. So that'll be a different change of pace with the division. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Next, armor has completely been overhauled. Your armor value now has a different mitigation value depending on the world tier that you are in. Damage mitigation has been capped at 70%, and reaching damage mitigation cap will require much more armor, forcing you to make a conscious decision to spec into that stat. Whether or not that statement right there at the end is true or not, we'll have to wait and see, because they said that last time and it became very, very easy to reach maximum armor mitigation without much of an issue. And I will definitely be sure to let you know what the exact number is that you're looking for to reach the new maximum armor mitigation and whether or not it is worth doing so. And then the last one is toughness will now take all damage resilience into account. I personally not a big fan of this because damage resilience is very vague. You can have exotic damage resilience, you can have resistance to elites, etc. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're tough in PvP or that you can take on the entire world. There needs to be a separation. You need to understand what you need to look for to react and be proactive in certain situations. Let's say you're going into a sticky bomb fight. You don't want to have maximum armor mitigation and still be weak as ever just because you believe your toughness is high and you're getting blown up with sticky bomb, because sticky bomb is exotic damage. So just keep that in mind whenever you're going and you're building your specs, that you have to look at things a little bit differently. Now the rest of these are going to be just extra details about your gear, like global rebalancing, pass on gear talents. That's all your gear talents and how they're going to be changed. And I'll go ahead and let those just cycle through. If you need to pause the video to read it, feel free to do so. And I will also leave a link in the description box below to where you can go and you can read these stats up for yourselves. So I will be back in the next slide that's of important value. Now the video will continue to cycle through all of your skills and everything, but I just wanted to touch up on one more thing before I move on too much further, and that's the skills global changes. And that is that the skill power and everything that you're seeing being curved differently with diminishing returns, remove hard caps on skills, expect skill power to be 3 times higher, and this, that, and the other. The numbers will be higher, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be seeing a difference in how we perform in PvE and PvP. Maybe sticky palms will become OP, maybe they won't. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to go ahead and let it play through all the skills and how everything's going to be affected by this new system of numbers and everything that they're doing. Just understand that whenever they say expect skill powers now to be 3 times higher, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to be tripled in damage and tripled in healing or anything like that. It just means that there's a new numbering system, there's a new way of them adding up everything. So just keep that in mind going into the future. Either way, let's go ahead and cycle through all the skills, because I know you guys have a variety of different skills that you guys prefer to use over other things. So I'm just going to cycle through all the skills. If you need to pause it, feel free to pause the video and catch what it is, information you're looking for. And again, if you want to read it for yourself, I will leave a link in the description box below so you can go check it out for yourselves. And the last highlight I was going to go over is going to be the gear set changes. Specifically, all of the gear scores are going to become their counterparts. So 191 will become 163, 214 will become 182, 240 will become 204, and 268 will become 229, making the max gear score you can get in the game 229. So some of you guys will pretty much be there as soon as you load into the game of 1.4, and that's fine. But understand that there are going to be a lot of changes to the gear sets, and you might want to go ahead and look over these, as that I will cycle through them on screen so you guys can know what to expect once the game actually comes back online after patch 1.4 has been installed. The only other thing that you need to know about is they're removing the 5-piece bonuses of the gear sets that had them. So Striker gear set and Sentry's Call gear set will no longer have a 5-piece bonus. You will be back to your 4-piece bonus, and the 5th piece bonus that was there is being completely eliminated and will no longer be in the game whatsoever. Either way, you guys, I hope you guys have found this video informative. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope to catch you guys next time in the next video. Either way, you guys have a wonderful day. Catch you next time. Peace!